Warning, the following conversation features fierce women, once high school acquaintances, now friends, who talk about real topics that most people either try to avoid or pretend don't exist. In here, it can get messy, but it's always the truth. Welcome to the Messy Truth.
Welcome to the Messy Truth. We have Becky and Jen here, and me, and we're talking about bullying today. So we all have our own takes on this, maybe stories that we want to share with you, and off we go, girls. Who wants to go first?
I feel like I always go first, so I'm going to make Jen go first.
All right.
Okay, thanks, Becky. Throw me under the bus, you bully. So where do you draw the line between teasing and mean behavior and bullying? Because I went through some really just ugly and unpleasant experiences really in middle school, of course, because middle school is the worst, hands down. Mm-hmm. And I think that's universal across the entire planet. It's just horrible. So it must have been like sixth or seventh grade. I don't know. It doesn't matter. So there were some girls behind me in an English class. And I think, some of these girls looked older. So they dressed older. And I was still dressing like Little House on the Prairie. And I was getting teased for it every single day by these two girls sitting in the back row. And I don't know if they were right behind me or two rows back, but it was awful. I dreaded going into that class and I couldn't wait for the bell to ring to get the heck out of there. It was really, really horrible. And again, it was just, I don't know did they ever threaten me? I don't believe so, but it was bad enough where I just dreaded going to that class and having to sit there. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I didn't speak up for myself. I didn't say anything to them. I didn't say anything to the teacher. Because, when you're that age, you don't want to look like some kind of narc. Mm-hmm. And a goody. And they already thought I was acting like a prude, goody two-shoes. So that would have made it worse in my mind. Mm-hmm. And almost the entire school year. And finally, I told my mom and she's like, at some point, if you continue to not say anything, they're just going to drop it because they're not getting a rise out of you. Because initially I would turn around and be like, what the heck? But I eventually, just ignored them completely. And by the end of the school year, finally, they stopped that nonsense.
Did you confront them, Jen? Did you say anything to them when they would say that to you? No,
I was too scared. They were taller than me. They were bigger than me. And they had a certain reputation that they would probably pound me after school. Yeah. So I'm like this.
And they were uglier than you too, right? They're uglier than you.
They were just awful and nasty. But so that was my story. And then one of my daughters experienced bullying. And unfortunately, she was a little bit younger than that. There was a kid in her class every day. He would kick her from under his desk.
Oh my goodness.
And then, and she would eventually, initially she didn't say anything. Then eventually she started saying, cut it out. Keep doing it every single day. And to me, while some people might be like, well, it's just a kick under the desk, whatever. And then with me, with the girls teasing me, I think when there's a pattern of it, regardless of whether it's mild or not, I think that would constitute bullying. Because I think if you do it a few times, it's teasing. I think after, I don't know if there's some kind of prescribed set of time. I think it is bullying behavior.
Yeah. That's a good point. That's a really good point.
So that's it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's fair to credit, and I'm not going to say this person's name, but they know who they are and they do watch. In fact, they were one of the few people to be like, when are you guys coming back? Having our video editing problems. But he was like, I think you should do an episode on this. And he really mentioned it a couple of times. Consider doing an episode on this. And so this is why we're doing it. And you know who you are. And so thanks for suggesting that to us. And we're purposely not saying any names today for a reason.
Even though we really want to.
Give you the credit. And if you let us later, we'll tag you in it.
Yeah.
But we didn't.
We should charge for like an after party, like they do on Bravo, like a charge, and then
Yeah.
we'll divulge everything at that
Oh
point
my
for
God.
money.
Behind the scenes.
But that person was bullied a lot. And I didn't know that person in high school. I don't remember them. And not people will just be like, people who don't know me will say, oh, because you were a snob or whatever. No, I was a quiet person in high school. And I think you girls can like attest to that fact. But so my background in bullying, I don't ever have a memory of being bullied other than by one of my six brothers, which was probably mostly teasing. But I think I've talked about this in our Mind Chatter series, but I had an older brother who was 2 years older than me, who was born with cirrhosis of the liver. And when you're born with that in 1968, that's like a death sentence unless you can get a liver transplant. And it wasn't what it is today. It's much more treatable today. But because of his cirrhosis of the liver and his disease, he died at the age of 14. But I remember us moving to Florida because the weather would be better for him down there and his health. And when we got to the schools down there, and we were in a private Christian school, my parents sent us to, because the public schools weren't so great in Florida. And in this private Christian school, my brother so that would have been 5th, 6th, and 7th grade for him. He was so bullied by these kids over his condition, because his condition made his skin a little yellowish, a little greenish. They would call him names like the green giant and purple lips, and because the blood didn't circulate very well in his body. And I just remember, like, every day getting ready to go to school, he would just beg my mom, I don't want to go to school today. I don't want to go to school today. So, like, not only was this kid dealing with this illness, this sickness that he had, not feeling physically well, but he had to face every single day going to school feeling like crap because other kids were making fun of him for something that he couldn't change about himself. And I just remember from such an early age, like the age of, just 3rd grade, hating it. I hated hearing him not want to go to school and begging my mom not to go to school. And it was hard. And I remember just being his younger sister, wanting to know who these kids were, because it fired me up inside, and I wanted to know who these kids were, and I wanted to meet them outside, and I was willing to do anything to like put my brother out of his misery with this teasing. And if that meant I was just willing to do whatever, like pick up a big rock and throw it at them. And I had all these visions of what I would do to these kids. And eventually my parents decided to pull him out and put him in a public school. And wouldn't you know, it was the public school where he found kids who were empathetic, who were kind, who friended him, who showed him around, who were able to see him for who he was, and but what that instilled in me at such an early age, seeing the behind the scenes of the person being bullied and how it affected him, it just put this fire in me that I still was there, of not tolerating seeing any sort of bullying whatsoever. It would just piss me off. I've done my best to tell my kids, my expectations of you is that you stick up for the kid who's being bullied. And if you need to, you put the bully person in their place. And I don't care what that looks like. I will support you no matter what, and I think if people could see the hurt they cause people when they're being bullied, that maybe they would really think twice before doing it.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I agree with that, because I think some people are rotten to the core, and for reasons. People aren't rotten just to be rotten.
I know who you're talking about.
Yeah. And before we move on, I actually had made a notation when Jen was talking, but Becky, you just kind of brought it forward again, and you said you gave what that did for you, like being seeing that bullying, how that changed you. And Jen, do you have anything that you can think of that you're different or that has instilled in you going through that, remembering how that felt, what that's done for you in adulthood?
And telling my girls, stand up for yourself, but also to stand up for others. When you see it's a wrong,
Yeah.
You've got to step in. That's the basic human decent thing to do, to step in. And it's awful now in a sense. I don't mean to like get off topic, but with the phones and stuff, people will record stuff and they won't even help. Like that's unconscionable.
It's shocking.
Unconscionable.
Yeah.
That, kids, and even adults, I'm sure, somebody will be rotten to somebody else. And rather than sticking up for the person and calling that person out on it, they'll freaking record it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But getting back to that, that's something I've also, like Becky told my daughters, I'm like, stand up for someone, because if they don't have you, who else do they have?
Yeah.
And so many people are so scared to do that.
Yeah. That's one of the things I love. My kids go to New Paltz School District. Now, I know there's a lot of people out there who have a lot of negative things to say about the New Paltz School District, but one of the things I really loved about it was when my son started kindergarten, first and second grade, he was at Duzine, and they had this whole campaign that lasted the whole time he was there, because you want to teach kids about bullying early on. So they, like we talked about in our previous episode with the neuroplasticity of the brain, creating those neural pathways, they would tell the kids, because you don't want a kindergarten, first or second grader stepping in and confronting a bully. But what they told the kids back then was, don't stand by, stand next. And
nice.
You stand next to the person bullying, you can stay quiet, but you stand next to them to let them know, like, no, I'm here with you.
I like that. Well, that just gave me chills.
Yeah, I'm going to brace this with you. And, I think that was a great and a safe way to start getting younger kids used to the idea of standing up against bullying. And this was a turning point for me in high school. I have two incidences that were very poignant for me, that stood out for me when I was in high school. So I went to middle school in a private Christian school in the area. And when I got to Walk-Hill, it was ingrained in my brain, oh, these kids are doing drugs and they're smoking pot and they're all having sex and they're going to try to get you to do the same thing. So when I started ninth grade, I was like, you're all bad people. Don't impact me, And so I was so scared to talk to people, because I just thought for sure they were going to try to get me to do something bad that I shouldn't do. But so I was quiet. I was very quiet in ninth grade, so much so that like the guidance counselor sent home like a notice to my parents saying like how quiet I was, and they were concerned about me. I mean, now when you know me now, I'm not far from quiet. But I remember in gym class, this guy who was in my grade, asshole, and because I was so quiet, when when you changed after gym, you would line up by the door until the bell rings so you could go out. Well, also I would line up on the wall by the door to get ready for the bell to ring so I could leave. And this kid, every single freaking gym class, he would stand right behind me, and somehow the palm of his hand would eventually find its way to my butt cheek. And I remember the first couple of times thinking, I would turn around and he would go, oh, sorry. And I just was like, was that his book bag? Like, I was stupid and I gave him the benefit of the doubt, but it happened every time. And I can't even tell you how many times. And I was just like, oh, here we go again. Like, I would try to get somebody to stand right behind me so he couldn't, and he would find a way to get right behind me to touch my butt, And I hated it. I was like, I don't know what to do here. Like, because it's a little iffy. Like, he could say it was his book bag, but I know it was his hand. And then there was one day, because I walked home, I lived so close to the school, I walked home. There's one day, it was after school, I was walking down that back stairwell. And I reached the landing of the stairwell between the 2 floors. And there he was in the landing of the stairwell. Nobody else was around, just this kid, me walking down the stairs, seeing this kid. And he cornered me into the corner of the stairwell. And I remember like, it was that fight or flight moment. And I was like, I did both. I fought back and I got the heck out of there. But I remember just like thinking like, what, like no words were said. It was so weird. What are you going to do? And he just was backing me into the corner. And I just pushed him and I said, no, don't touch me anymore. Like, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I definitely yelled and I definitely gave him a warning to keep his hands off me. And then I just quickly walked down the rest of the stairs and out of the building. And sure enough, that kid never bothered me again. But
wow.
How many people, would just be victimized and be scared to say something because they're not sure,
And he thought you were that type of person. You were so quiet. He thought he could get away.
I was that type of person to not make a fuss. I was always taught not to make a fuss about something,
Yeah.
But, I wasn't.
Did that change?
Yeah.
Going forward at school, do you feel like that kind of brought you out of your shell at all? That experience?
Actually, I don't think that experience brought me out of my shell because that was really early on in 9th grade. But I do have another incident that happened in 10th grade. And I think this kind of pushed me a little bit out of my shell. Yeah. And what happened was there was a student in our school. I'm sure you guys remember. He had cerebral palsy.
Oh, yeah.
Such a sweet kid. So sweet. He was a grade below us. He was walking down the hall. That hallway that lines the gym and the courtyard. He was walking down the hall, had a bunch of books in his hand. He didn't have a book bag. And 3 or 4 football players, well-known football players, were coming towards him in that direction. Now, granted, they were not meaning to knock into him and knock his books down. It wasn't a bullying attempt. It was an accident that they knocked his books down and his books were all over the floor. But their response to me was bullying because they laughed at him for picking up his books. And I just remember like I was walking maybe 10 feet behind this kid who this happened to. And I could just feel like the fire in my stomach, like rise to the surface. I was so angry and I lost it. I just started yelling at these football players. Who do you think you are? You're knocking into him. You don't laugh. You help him pick up the books. You want to be good people, pick up the books. Like you're all these, like I went to town on them. Like you think you're these great football, help him pick up his books. Like I was just so ticked. And they did help him pick up his books. And then one of them apologized to me. And I was like, oh no, you don't apologize to me. You apologize to him. And then he did apologize. Only one of them apologized though that day. But I think after that, I was like, no, I'm not so worried about these people because you know what? They have a lot to learn. And I'm going to speak up here and there where I think maybe what I think my experience can maybe benefit people and help them be better people or help them see where they're a freaking asshole because it's such an asshole move to do that. Like, you don't have cerebral palsy. You're completely healthy. You're a football player. You're an athlete. Like, what are you doing? It just made me so angry. And after that, I kind of found my voice there. I wasn't so intimidated by people anymore.
Yeah. Look at your face.
I know, I'm so angry just thinking
You're like, oh.
It does make me angry. I feel like my face is so hot just thinking about it.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting. Let me finish my sentence. I'm sorry. How these instances will stay with us. These are things that we remember. And we're going, we're all 50, right? I'll be 50 soon. We're 50. So here we are back in high school, junior high. And we still remember, like, you can be back in that moment, right? You can remember that moment. You can remember how it feels. You can see your younger self there and just feel everything. And I think that speaks volumes. About
If you don't mind my saying real quick,
yeah,
that's a form of trauma
yes, yeah,
in the emotional part of your brain.
that's right.
And that stuff, you can forgive, you can really forget,
Yeah,
to a certain degree.
right.
And depending on how much hurt there was, I mean, I'm not a clinical, therapist or anything like that, but from what I understand,
Mhm.
It is a form of trauma. And that's why all those emotions come flooding back from bad experiences. And bullying is obviously one of them.
Yeah. Yeah. I like Becky came into the school, 8th grade. I came in, no, I wasn't through Walk Hill, all through elementary. So I didn't know anybody. And I remember it was 8th grade, still in the middle school, where I came to my locker and there was with permanent black magic permanent marker the word slut written on my locker, and I was a virgin. So I wasn't a slut. So I'm really not sure, and I don't even know if I had a boyfriend at that point. I'm not sure, but I don't think
You
so.
didn't. I remember when that happened.
Yeah. Oh, see, isn't that funny? Yeah, I remember that. I remember
Do you know who did it?
No, maybe I did then, but I don't remember now. I don't think I knew who did it. I just can, but I can see it. I can see it as plain as day. I can be back there in that moment and seeing it and get that like feeling. I just got chills all through me again. And I remember my poor friend, her name was Amy. I won't say her last name. She was Jewish. She was my first friend at school. And that poor girl was teased and teased and teased because she was Jewish. Because she was Jewish. Yes. So they talked about her nose. They talked about whatever. I don't know. But I remember standing next to her, Becky. So here you go. When they're teaching like your son what to do in kindergarten. And I am not a fighter. I am like one of those people. I'll roll under my desk in a ball, like, okay, you don't see me, don't hurt me. But I remember standing next to her and them just teasing her and feeling so helpless because I was new. I was scared. I didn't have that voice to say, who are you? Back off. Like I was scared, probably just as much as she was almost, but poor, it wasn't me being targeted. So I can't put myself in her place. That was horrible. And, she moved out of the school district because of that. She moved to New Paltz, if I remember correctly. And then we lost touch, unfortunately. But then my quick story, besides the slut on my locker, I did my first boyfriend. I was 15, 9th grade, my first real boyfriend, Joe. And I remember all of a sudden having this group of girls that were sports people, just constantly and like, I don't even bullying me. I'm trying to but one specific thing I remember they would do, it was finals. I was on the bus. It was Regents. I was on the bus. So it's not your normal bus routes. And one of them drove, one of them was older, and they were all in the car and they followed my bus home. And I'm not sure if I knew that they were doing that. They followed my bus home. They got off they pulled into my road when I got off the bus, and they were pushing me and telling me, you better not hurt him or we're going to hurt you. And I'm like, they weren't even friends with him. I found out later. Like,
was he a sports person?
I'm sorry?
Was he also a sports person?
He played soccer. But I mean, I don't think that I think what it was is they were just they were assholes. I think, some of them are probably still assholes. I don't know, but they were assholes and they were using it as an excuse. In my mind, it was an excuse to target somebody. We don't like the way you look, or you're new in the school and we don't need another girl in our school. And we're going to show you, who are you? We're going to push you down. So yeah. And then Yeah, I remember being worried about being beat up by them for quite some time. And then all of a sudden, I think it was probably 11th grade or something. And then all of a sudden they were nice. But then there were some asshole guys that would call me names in school. One's married to the other one that bullied me at the bus stop. So two bullies married each other, you know. But anyway,
it's surprising. But Maureen, so real quick,
yeah,
you know, when you were saying that, because I think I know who you're talking about.
yeah,
On like the boy, the girls.
yeah.
My theory, and this could also apply to bullying with teens in general. He was cute, so I bet you $1 million they were pissed.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because you snagged him,
Yeah.
and they never got to. Like, I think they were jealous.
Probably.
Why else?
Yeah.
I mean, well, they don't know that. No, why else would they do?
Yeah.
Come on.
I feel that might be the case, but then you don't want to sit there and feel like you're tooting your horn. So
I know.
But I do feel like in general, when new girls will come into the school, they're either going, because I seen another new girl come in, and I remember they just embraced her and took her in with open arms. And I remember thinking, what the hell? Like, why are they so nice to her? And I feel like I was a nice person in high school. I don't remember bullying anybody. So it's like, why don't they want to be nice to me? And, you know, that's a terrible feeling. So I don't know. But anyway.
That reminds me, I came across this quote that somebody said about bullying. And I thought it was so great, and I think this is them. And it says, it's a little long, so I'll cut some of it out, but it says they'll hate you if you're beautiful. They'll hate you if you're successful. They'll hate you if you're right. They'll hate you if you're popular. They'll hate you when you get attention. They'll hate you when people in their life like you. They will hate you if you worship a different version of their God. They'll hate you if you're spiritual. They'll hate you if you have courage. They'll hate you if you have an opinion. They'll hate you when people support you, when they see you happy. They'll hate you when you post prayers and religious quotes on social media. They just hate. But remember this, they hate you because you represent something they feel they don't have. It really isn't about you. It's about the hatred they have for themselves. And then it says, so smile today because there is something you are doing right that has a lot of people thinking about you.
I love that. And I just got chills again. I don't know what's happening to me. I keep getting chills when you guys are saying things that I really like. Wow, that's great.
And that leads into another one. Like, people who love themselves, they don't hurt other people. And the more we hate ourselves, the more we want to hurt others. So there's that saying, hurt people, hurt
people. Yes. Yeah. I have, I think I've mentioned to you guys before, I have this little spiral pad, it's index cards, and I put my favorite quotes on them. And I have heard that one before, and I actually have that in my spiral pad. Hurt people, hurt people.
Yeah.
You try to look at a situation, and you can't do this when you're in high school. So I try to instill this in Rebecca. None of this is okay. But when things like this happen, and I try to also instill this in her so she won't be mean or bully somebody else if she sees something that she doesn't like and then she goes to pick on it. Okay. You have to look at the whole picture so you can accept people for who they are. Why is that person like that? Yeah, they're different. And sometimes our first notion, not now as we're older girls, but where your first notion is to look at somebody and be like, oh, look, they're overweight, or oh, look, they're this. Let's look a little bit deeper. Why is that person the way they are? And let's humanize them, not dehumanize them. And maybe that would help people, not to bully and make fun of, if we can humanize somebody more. But I do think that some people, back to the beginning, are hurt, like you're saying, hurt people. So somewhere along the line, they're so hurt and they're bringing it down the line. And I have a story about that, but I don't want to keep talking. I want to give somebody else a chance.
That just reminds me of this, but it's, some people are in such utter darkness that they'll burn you just to see a light.
Oh, yeah.
So try not to take it personally. Now, that's hard as a teenager when your brain is still developing. It's a lot easier when you're an adult. But if you can instill that in your kids, but that still doesn't mean your kids need to tolerate it, you know?
Right. Right. And there's that, going, I don't want to forget, I have a note about what I was saying before about hurt people. But with you saying that, where is that line? Do we have a line that we draw where we tell our kids, do whatever it takes if you're being bullied? Right? Or because, right, I have a story with this with Rebecca, or you tell them to talk their way out of it. Like, how do you handle that situation? Go ahead, Becky. I see that look on your face.
So this is going to sound bad, and I don't care if people judge me. I do not care. One of my son is the most mild-mannered, easygoing. Year after year, his teachers have always told me he's the caretaker. People look at him as like the grandpa in the class, the uncle in the class. He looks out for everybody. He's kind to everybody. He's protects people. But when he was in 6th or 7th grade, I think maybe, I don't know, it was 6th or 7th grade, I get a phone call. So he's in the middle school. I get a phone call from the principal. And now, like, I don't know how it is in your kids' school districts, but when you get a phone call from the kid's school and nothing's wrong, the first thing the teacher will say, hey, this is Karen's teacher. Everything's okay. They'll say that. And so I got, hey, this is the vice principal of the middle school. I didn't hear everything's okay. And I was like,
yeah, sure.
What just happened? Your son wasn't involved in a fight. And I'm like, what? Yeah, he punched somebody and they had a bloody nose. And so we have them down here. Then anyway, the short of the story is, because it's the important part is we've always told Kieran, you don't start a fight, but you finish it. And I know some people may not like that, but if you don't finish the fight, whatever that finishing it means, finishing it can mean exerting your power enough to show them don't mess with me, or it can mean saying the words you need to say to get out of there, but you finish. And so Kieran's version of finish, and I had no problem with it, was this kid pushed Kieran to the ground from behind. So Kieran didn't even see him coming, but he pushed him and Kieran fell to the ground. And Kieran's response, which shocked me because he's so mild-mannered, he's so calm and tempered, he just hauled off and punched this kid in the face.
Wow.
Guess what? That kid never bothered him again, ever.
And that's the terrible thing. I feel like what you just said is what you have to do. My parents told my brother, don't get in a fight. And he has horrible, Jen, I'm going to use your word, trauma. I feel like my brother has trauma from being bullied. I don't know if he wants me to say that in public, but I do. I feel like he does. And my mother would change that. My mother would change her decision now, looking back at it. And with Rebecca, she had some stuff going on in one of the schools, and it was guys that were doing it. And then they brought the girls into it, and it was like everybody was doing it to her. And then one day she just hauled off and punched this kid, a boy, when he came out of the bathroom. She stood there and whacked him right in the face. She didn't even get in trouble for it because I think the whole school knew what was going on. And I was okay with that. I actually told her, I think I gave her permission to do what she needed to do to gain her respect in that school. Why? And then she did it. So she was waiting for my permission, I think. But why? Why do we as parents have to tell our kids that's how it is nowadays? Or how has it always been like that, to gain respect?
There's always been, but I think parents, maybe when we were growing up, I don't really know. Some were pacifist, some were aggressive people. But the bottom line is, I think the responsible thing to do as a parent is to empower your kid to make the decision in that moment that seems right for them. And
that's good
beforehand, and sometimes it's talking, hey dude, why'd you push me? And other times it's just like, oh no, hell no, bam, here's my fist across your face, and you'll learn not to do that again.
Jen, what do you think about that?
I think it's because there has to be accountability.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, whether it's a punch to the face, because you're defending someone who's being bullied, or you're being bullied and you have to defend yourself. The people who are responsible for it have to be held accountable if it comes in the form of a note home, going to the principal's office, or getting a bloody nose.
Yeah.
And regardless of age or what the person is doing, anybody who is going to do that has to be held accountable.
Yeah.
Because otherwise they're going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
Right. That's right. Yeah. And Jen, before I go to my story, because I think my second story will kind of fit in what you were wanting to talk about. You had another take on bullying.
So what I was thinking too, I thought to myself, is bullying just an issue with kids? No. So there's workplace bullying, and there's bullying within families with siblings.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also bullying in, personal relationships, between husbands and wives, boyfriends and girlfriends. And I've witnessed it with someone I know, a woman bullying her husband for decades.
Yeah.
And it's awful. It's awkward. It's so unkind. I mean, we don't, deal with them anymore. We don't have relationships with them anymore or anything like that. But, when something occurs, again, there's like an element of a pattern emerging, and it's over time.
Yeah.
It's not like a one instance kind of thing. So if like there's, a boyfriend or a husband who uses intimidation as a tactic to get what they want over A, it's wrong.
Yeah.
B, when it's done over the course of time, that's emotional abuse.
Mm-hmm.
So like the wording may change from bullying to emotional abuse as adults, because at the end of the day, that's what it is.
A really good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
And in those cases, if the person isn't called out on it,
yeah,
it's going to continue.
Yeah.
Because they're not getting any pushback. They don't think anything's wrong, and they're getting what they want.
Right.
So they're going to keep doing it until they're called out on it.
Yeah.
And what fuels that kind of behavior in an adult? There's a myriad of issues for that. I mean, who knows? But at the end of the day, that person needs to be held accountable. And it's hard because for the person who's being intimidated, that could be unbelievably difficult to do, because you're already intimidated.
Oh my
and
gosh.
Now maybe if you were in a position where you thought, you know what, I'm going to say something, this is wrong. Then they say something. If you're dealing with a certain kind of person, that person is going to come back. And I guess they call it gaslighting.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Turn it around on you. Like, what's your problem? Like, I'm just doing X, Y, and Z. What are you getting all upset with me for?
Yep.
Like, you have no reason to get angry. And that's a whole nother area of emotional abuse. But it's bullying behavior, which is, clinically emotional abuse.
So I have experience with both of those. I feel like during my marriage, my first marriage, I didn't experience that at all. But when we started to go through a divorce, that behavior came out quite aggressively. And that was horrifying to me. I don't know if they realized it, because I didn't want to show that fear, but I would cower under it and just bawl when the phone would hang up or when I would get myself out of the situation. It is a horrible, horrible feeling to be bullied by an adult or somebody that you are close with in a relationship like that. And then before Carl and I were together and married, I had a narcissistic relationship with that kind of bullying. And they like to turn things around on you. So as an adult, I guess I have experienced bullying too. I didn't think about that, Jen, until you had that tape. You brought that different, that spin on the bullying here.
And can I just say too, I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, you're not. No.
I just want to say to anyone out there who might be listening or, watching or whatever, if something is ringing a bell, or the wheels are now starting to go in your head and go online, get help.
Yeah.
There's so many resources out there, because oftentimes something will happen for such a long period of time, you don't even know it's wrong.
You're desensitized to it.
Right.
Mhm.
And you got to call somebody, you got to call it out. And like, there may be people around you who are too nice to
Mhm.
say something,
Mhm.
or they're too scared to say something because they don't want to rock the boat.
Yeah.
But any kind of emotional type abuse stuff, or if you feel like you've been like you're not supposed to feel intimidated by your spouse or partner, case closed.
Right.
Ever.
Right. Or by
That's
any human being.
Right. By anyone, but especially those closest to you, because it's
Right.
utterly wrong.
Supposed to protect you, care about you, have your
Right.
And keep you
Right.
safe, not make you feel scared.
Right.
Or use intimidation as a way to control an outcome, a person, a situation, whatever the case may be.
Yeah.
There are so many resources online, but like, if I just wanted to say that, for anyone who might be listening, because it's a lot more subtle than people may realize when it happens in adulthood.
Yeah. Right. Right. Because you don't hear about adults bullying other adults. It's a different language, like you just mentioned. It is different. And to go into that, Becky, before I move into something, segue into a story, did you have something you wanted to add to this?
No, the only other thing I wanted to talk about was just the difference in bullying today as it was when we were kids. But
okay,
we're there.
So
yet.
I just have a real quick segue when kind of combining what we're talking about now with the adult bullying, and then also hurt people is, I feel like with my brother, going back, being bullied so horribly in high school, and then he would come home and he would bully my sister, and that has had quite an impact on my sister, I feel. And I hope that my family probably is not going to like that I say this, but oh well, this is a topic that's really important. They're adults now, and I hope that they're working through that and forgiving each other for those things. But it's neither of their faults, and this is not a shameful thing. So nobody should feel ashamed of it. It's what happens in life. And then unfortunately, when things like this start in high school, for whatever reason, those kids are hurt and put their hurt on somebody else. And then that person comes home and starts hurting their family members. And then how that affects that family member. And it's a cycle, and it goes on and on and on.
Right.
So I just wanted to make that point, how bullying has such lasting effects, not just on the person being bullied, but how it's carried on and carried through onto other people.
Yep.
So, Becky, go start off on your next topic here with this.
Well, I just wanted to address that. I remember reading an article about this. I don't remember how long ago it was. With COVID, it's like everything's just like this time warp, but it was comparing the difference between bullying back when we were kids and bullying today. And so it was so eye-opening reading what they were saying, because they were like, bullying back in our day, it was like, do you remember like when there was a fight in the high school, like only those people who were in the hallway got to see that fight, everyone else just heard about it,
Right.
But so like bullying in our day, it was like, if you happened to be in that vicinity when that bullying was taking place, you were one of the people to see it, whether it was in the hallway, the gym, a locker room, whatever. It was a private thing with just a very select few people who happened to either come across it or witness it or whatever. But what I thought was like kind of blew my mind when you think about it is bullying today. Say a kid's in the cafeteria, and as he's walking to his table, he trips on something and his tray goes everywhere and his food goes everywhere. Back in our day, the people in the cafeteria might laugh, somebody might help him up, and it'd be embarrassing for that moment, but he'll move on because it's just short-lived.
Yeah.
Not today. Today, that same kid who trips and drops his tray in the cafeteria, there's 5 or 6 or 10 or 15 kids who've already recorded it on their phone or the reaction on their phone. Within minutes, they're texting it to all of their friends, probably, a good portion of the school. They can post it on a social media platform. So not only those people who were in the cafeteria saw that event that was embarrassing and humiliating to that kid, but the entire school sees it. Everybody on Snapchat can see it. The freaking whole world can see it, and it never goes away.
Right.
That is bullying to the max.
Yeah.
And I don't think kids are thinking about it when they post something that it might be an embarrassing moment for another kid, the lasting impacts that it has on that kid. When in our day, it was like, maybe in a half an hour, the kids moved on because it's over and done with. But no, it lives on forever in digital memory today.
Yeah. That's frightening. And,
you just wonder, like, what is that doing to kids?
Yeah. I've seen Rebecca be involved in that, and I've seen it be done to her on both ends. And I don't condone either end of it. And I have spoken to her about this stuff frequently.
Yeah.
And, I don't even know what to say. I know that I've seen, and what's horrible about, like you said, the lasting effects of it, you can't get away from it. So say you're being bullied and, you're at school and you get in a fight in the hallway and you are just distraught. You're distraught. You go home, you go in your room, you cry yourself to sleep. You don't want to go to school the next day. And it's done with within a couple days. Like you said, people move on, they forget about it. But with social media now in this day and age, you can't get away from it. Like here, I'm getting chills again. I don't know what's going on with me, but it's like you're coming home and you can't leave it in school. They're pounding you through the phone. You can't get away from it. You can't have relief from it. And that's horrible. Like, I just can't even think of the words that just run through me. And these are our kids. Like, so, sometimes you don't even know that's happening to them, because I know when I was a teenager, I would go in my room, I'd shut my door, I'm listening to my music, I'm doing my stuff, so if Rebecca comes home, and we're a lot more verbal now, and she tells me things, but there was a time where she was going through a hard time and I didn't know it. So she's in her room and I think she's playing or doing something, and no, she's being bullied on her phone. And that is a horrible thing. You don't even know sometimes what's happening to your kids, so you can't even help them. But Jen, what do you think?
You're reliving that trauma then.
Yeah.
Because if you're on, Instagram or whatever, and someone has that moment, that one stupid, awful moment of your life, comes up as a memory or whatever, they get to repost it and you get to relive that garbage.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that. Right.
Yeah. It's just, it's so ugly. It's so sad. And, I hope that, this is, and I know not all teenagers do this stuff. I mean, it's just a few idiots that you have all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But hopefully
everybody watches it. Not everybody may post it, but everybody watches it.
Yeah.
Right.
You know how there's like those videos of like, they're supposed to be funny. They're like on America's Funniest Videos or something like that. But it's like videos of kids coming out of school and they're all slipping and falling on the same ice patch
of ice. Right.
Why is that funny? That's not funny. It's like, I watched it, I'm like, oh, turn it. I don't want to see these kids falling.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping
to some people that's funny.
Yeah. But I'm hoping at the same time, when a lot of these kids now who are on these devices all the time, they'll learn over the course of time and as they go into adulthood, because, supposedly when you know better, you do better.
Yeah.
So that's my hope for the future, for all these kids who are, pulling some of this stuff, because some of them, and, the bullying thing, I'm sure not all of them go into adulthood bullying. I'm sure some of them do, but I'm sure not all of them do. Yeah. And they learn better. And then you've got the other kids who are there, and I did this too. Kids would be teasing a kid and I would join in or laugh or whatever, and that was wrong. So I eventually stopped it. I don't think I bullied anybody. I sure as hell hope I didn't. But I do remember, like, if some kids were laughing at somebody, every once in a while I would join in. But again, better, you do better. And that's what I'm hoping down the road with all this technology, and these kinds of instances where this generation will do better.
Yeah. Yeah. Have more, the responsibility of, yeah.
But, and the good thing is they know cyberbullying is a crime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, at least fortunately, again, a lot of it does boil down to consequences, because even if there are kids or people, adults who aren't going to stand up to it initially, at some point, there has to be a consequence in order for the behavior to stop.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And the good thing is we have cyberbullying laws.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can I throw in a twist? I just had a thought in my head. What about when you think a teacher or a principal or vice principal is bullying your child?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Nope. You gotta, no.
That is really hard. I feel like I have experience with that. And being new into a district, not myself, with Rebecca, that and not feeling like you have a really huge voice because you're new in the district and everybody around you is seeing something the way it's being portrayed, but it's different moving parts. That is,
and
really
it's worse. It's worse because that person's in a position of authority.
Yes.
And you have to wonder if that person is really aware of what they're doing. They have to be.
Oh, yes. This person was aware.
If they're in education, they're aware. I mean, just coming from my education background, being a teacher in the schools, no, when you're saying something, you are trained enough. You are specifically trained in bullying. And listen, you want to get a school to respond to you. And I had to do this with my daughter when she was in high school, because she was bullied because she had Lyme disease, and a teacher said something to her in front of an entire class to belittle her condition. Mm-hmm. When I heard about it, I was at work. I was like, I called my principal. I'm like, I got to go because I got a situation I got to take care of. I went to that school and I argued with the vice principal of that school, who was an idiot. Thank God he's not there anymore. And he just was trying to defend this teacher. Oh, she's a young teacher. I'm like, I don't care. I don't care how young she is. You don't do that. And listen, the magic word you want to say as a parent to get a school to pay attention to you, DASA. Okay. The Dignity for All Students Act.
Oh.
A federal act that protects kids from being treated without dignity. And that doesn't matter. That could be their health. It could be their sexual orientation. It could be their size. It could be their academic ability. It could be any reason. Everybody falls under DASA. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to make a DASA complaint. And boom, the superintendent was calling me within 10 minutes. And I laced into her. I was like, this is not acceptable. I don't want to see this happen again with my daughter or any other kid. And that comes back to me, what I think, I will always be the freaking squeaky wheel and that pain in the ass parent, because there's other parents out there who are scared to do it. And if that makes me being the pain in the ass for my daughter means somebody else's kid won't have to do it, then fine. I don't care.
Well, I would have liked you with me, because that was me. I was that scared parent. I wasn't in the other school district. If I had to, I didn't have to say something. But when you're brand new into a district, and it was,
Your kid
Yeah.
is not brand new to you.
You're right.
Mama Bear comes out, and not just Mama Bear for my kids, but for all other kids, because being a teacher, I am way protective over my students. I don't want to see another teacher say something or reprimand my students. If you have, my thing was always when I taught, like, if my kid did something wrong, don't you address it. You bring it to me and I'll address it, because no one reprimands my kids but me.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Yeah.
But
I think I could have used your coaching.
Yeah, I've gotten kicked off the New Paltz School Facebook page because I'm such a pot stirrer, I guess.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Anyway, and what else? What else? Have we left anything unturned, Jen?
Well, I think we have to just be cognizant of time.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't even know where we are on time.
I think we're back down to about 7 minutes.
All right. We should wrap it up.
So we could wrap up.
I'm out of my stuff. I don't know about you guys, but I want you.
Yeah, I'm pretty much out.
I think we covered a good ground for people to get an idea of what we think about bullying and the different kinds of bullying. I think.
But I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but just last minute thing, and this goes without saying, I think, because how many headlines have we read where some poor teenager took their life
That's right.
because of bullying? I mean,
and I feel like you see that more now than you did. Now, I'm sorry.
Which we have to see, and it's good, because if it's going to save a life, then hands down, because those teen years, oh my gosh, it's so devastating and humiliating, and it breaks my heart and everyone else's, I'm sure, when those kinds of situations arise. I mean, to have someone in such a desperate situation where they felt like there was no other way to cope with it. Right. Because they were so humiliated, because they were bullied.
Yeah.
That should never, ever, ever freaking happen ever again, as long as there are human beings on this planet, ever.
Yeah. And I think that's part of the social media issue, is when you can't get away from it. It's like your mind chatter almost, but it's like bullying that's with you on that social media over and over, when they have those phones stuck in their hands all the time, and it's constantly bombarding them.
And they have to learn at what point to block somebody.
That's right. And
before it becomes bullying.
Yeah.
Before it becomes bullying, because sometimes kids, they don't want to block somebody.
That's right.
And they're like, well, they've been kind of mean, but now this week they're nice, because that's how middle school goes. And sometimes high school, they're great one week, and the next week they're horrible.
That's right.
What a freaking roller coaster. And, coming to terms with, all right, you know what? This is really unhealthy. It's cruel. It's wrong. Block them.
Yeah.
Yes.
We just need to raise our kids to speak up for themselves and also speak up for others. Just that that mentality of I'm not tolerating this treatment of anybody.
Tolerating it. And as adults, if someone's in a relationship where they're using intimidation in any way, and it's intentional, you got to stop it. You got to nip it.
Exactly.
And I think my final thought will be along the lines of the hurt people is knowing when our kids are going through something, like with Rebecca going through divorce with me and her father, and maybe any other little things that crop up, understanding the hurts that our kids have, making sure that we're dealing with them at home so they're not pushing them out onto other people, I think is important. For that reason. Yep. So anyway, are we done, ladies? And we always want to encourage our Messy Truth listeners to comment, like, and share our videos, but to comment and interact with us and let us know what you think about the topics. In this one, have you been bullied? What do you think about bullying? Hopefully it's not a good thing. Just interact with us, talk to us. We like to talk back with you. Right?
Yes. Agree.
Okay. Yep. That's it. Shall we say goodbye?
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.